Distinguished participants, I welcome you to ninth episode of the Dialogue Diaspora. This program is the brainchild of Ambassador Anup Udgal. We are organizing many webinars and seminars on issues related to or pertaining to Indian diaspora. But we thought that it should have been an intellectual dimension and some serious discussion take place. That's why on 30th October 2021, we had Indian diaspora in New Zealand. Then that was followed by Keith Gawai in the month of November. Then again, Indian diaspora in the Latin America in the month of December. Then we have on 13th January, Indian diaspora and Indo-German relation in higher education, skill and technology. On 20th January, Indentured Labor Route Project. And again, Punjabi diaspora, very important program. For the first time, we discussed about the Punjabi diaspora. And on 19th February, we have Indian diaspora, Francophone country, and it will continue. Now we will have the next episode of this. After that, on 5th March, No India program alumni, we invited them because of this gap, we have to meet and invite them. So we thought that some representatives of the No India program, our young intellectuals come, and we are very fruitful. We are fortunate enough to have a very political activist, journalist, and also a scholar from Guyana, Dr. Vishram, and we will discuss today that we will have today dialogue with diaspora, and the main concentration will be on Caribbean, especially on Guyana. So to begin with, I request our Secretary General for the introductory remark for this dialogue of diaspora with a scholar, an activist, journalist, Dr. Vishram. Over to you.
Namaste to everybody. Namaste everybody. I welcome this dialogue. Vishram is an established scholar born in Guyana. And after his undergraduate studies in Guyana, migrated to the USA and did his master's in a couple of sciences. Then did his PhD also. So he has multiple PhDs. His credits. Since then, he taught over there in USA 35 years. Since last 7 years, he has been working as a journalist, writing columns for various newspapers in Caribbean as well as USA. His contribution to the diasporic studies is commendable and has also written a book, a book on diaspora, Indian diaspora. I welcome him today in this dialogue. International Sahyog Parishad through Diaspora Research and Resource Center had been organizing, as Narayan ji has explained, dialogue where we try to understand the challenges of those specific countries, in those specific countries for the Indian diaspora. Looking at Caribbean countries, with good presence in some countries and thinner in others. Indian diaspora over there has established itself very well. There are major achievements: economical, political, industrial, scholastic, professionals, and all that. And yet there are challenges of modern times. because over the time, the migration had happened 150 years back, and they have been continuing with the tradition and culture of their mother country that they did for their earlier generations, fourth generation, fifth generation, sixth generation, sometimes. And continuing with the language, continuing with the culture, somewhere they are finding it challenging. Apart from that, there are forces like globalization affected smaller countries and cultures that and Indian diaspora in that region is also part of that. It's the tradition, it's the culture, it's religion, everything. They have been valued a lot. And now the generations somewhere some of them are losing that, and that's one of the worries on our mind. With that comment, I feel I should stop here and read from Amni, and then we'll have a question and answer session where we'll try to find out in depth the challenges and of course opportunities and achievements in Indian diaspora. Thank you very much. Namaste. Welcome back.
Well, I thank you very much for that very kind introduction. Despite my background, I'm serving at 18 years. I did my Guyana, New York, where I spent much of it getting my graduate as well as postgraduate. Writing for a long period of time, probably not just Diaspora States, but also in travel. So claim to be one diaspora specialist that not only are familiar with the background of just one diaspora, but multiple diaspora. Of course, I'm more knowledgeable about the Caribbean, and when one speaks of Caribbean diaspora, one also talks about Guyana, Trinidad, and I am familiar not only with the Guyanese diaspora, but also Trinidad, and less so in Suriname, and less so in Jamaica, Grenada, St. Vincent, and the rest of the Indo-Caribbean. So I am familiar with these societies, not only because I've studied them, but also I've lived in these. And being a Guyanese, I can also claim to be a diaspora specialist. My wife, she's Trinidadian, and so that makes me skilled and familiar with all of these societies. And of course, I come to India very regularly. This must be a visit, if not more. And I'm always very pleased, happy to be here and to interact with my friends at the RSP. My relationship with my visit was way back in 1985. I think that was the first time through Mr. Manlal Ji. I met Secretary General here. No, I met Baleshwar. Jandewala. So it's been an honor to be here. And I think more will be learned if we speak interactive, but through questions and answers. In terms of challenges that we face in Guyana, we have cultural challenges, political challenges, religious challenges. The population of Guyana, the Indian population, has been declining from a high of 55% in the 1970s to just over 40% today. So that's a substantial decline. And this has come about as a result of migration, mostly North America, but at one particular time, Indo-Guyanese migrated throughout the Caribbean, Suriname, to French Guyana, and to Venezuela. Today, there is a reverse migration from Venezuela, that Indo-Guyanese who had migrated there are returning back to Guyana. At one particular time, we had several thousands, maybe in excess of 50,000 Indo-Guyanese who had migrated to Trinidad, and there is somewhat of a return migration to Guyana. And this return migration is a result of newfound wealth in Guyana. We are transitioning from an agro economy to a oil energy related economy, and so people are gravitating towards Guyana. We have had Indians who migrated to the United States, Canada. There's sort of a return migration from Guyana. They invest mostly, if not to live. So one of the challenges is migration out of and return back to Guyana. Another challenge is, of course, religious. There have been a lot of religious conversion of Hindus. Over the years, the Indian population at one time was 80%, and today it is just about 60%. So we have a substantial decline. And then we have a challenge in terms of, aside from religion, which is part of culture, we have got a challenge of general culture, in that the Indian population is slowly gravitating away from traditional Indian culture in dance and music to this creolized music that has been dominant over the last 30, 40 years. And so more and more as one travels for Guyana, you hear this kind of this loud musical voice that has nothing to do with it. That's another challenge. And then we have the political challenge that Indian population have been declining over the years. And with politics in Guyana racially, ethnically polarized, the population no longer has a built-in majority whereby you elect the party. So those are some of the challenges we face in Guyana. Challenges in Trinidad is not significantly different, but it's a repeat of what has been happening. And in Suriname, there is less challenge to culture. You all may be be familiar with the fact that in Suriname, we now have the first elected president is in Indian over the last 42 years. Last 42 years, we have an Indian president, but the Indian population in Suriname has been declining as well, from the 40%, and today I think it's just. But they do not face any significant challenge in terms of culture, music. So in essence, those are the challenges. In Jamaica, of course, the Indian population is declining, so has the Indian population. Challenges in culture as well. And one can echo that problem with regards to it's Antigua never really had a significant Indian population, but as a result of migration from Guyana, Indians were settled in Antigua and Barbuda. I believe the ambassador is accredited to Antigua and Barbuda. Goes there free. And us from New York do whatever we can from time to time. We do have groups that go to Jamaica to perform, in order to institutionalize. I was hoping and proposing that the same should be done in Grenada. It's Nevis, Dominica, Vincent, and I'm hoping ARSP can provide various resources so that we be able to promote Indian culture, soft culture in these islands and build a relationship between India and our Indo-Caribbean diaspora. In the United States, where a large percentage of the population of 5.5, 6 million are Indo-Caribbean people. I estimated to be about 700,000 reside in the United States. Most of them are settled in the New York area. There's a large number also. And they would have come from Guyana, Trinidad, and Tobago, a lesser, smaller number from Suriname, Jamaica, and the other islands. We do not face such a major challenge in the United States as we do in the Caribbean. And so therefore, our focus should be on how we could build a relationship between India and those. I think that's.
Very much. Everyone, thanks for the answer. Review. And Diaspora in Caribbean. Well, you have spoken about the challenges in this issue. Religious challenges. Let me start with a cultural challenge, because that is affects. I would like to ask you, how strong is this connect of the Indian identity, and how does a diaspora deal with it? They have a identity, and then they also have a so how strong is that identity factor at connect, and how that soft power of that connect can be used for the benefit of both the countries, for India as well as let's start.
Well, there is a challenge with regards to identity. Historically, Indians are very, very proud of who they are as a people, Indian, and being proud of being of tracing the roots. So first and foremost, they've always been. Over the years, I would say over the last 30, 40 years, having migrated to the United States and coming across with nationals from India, in which there have been conflicting relations with the group. We always felt that we are Indians, regardless of where we come from. When we land in North America, whether in Canada or New York, we have this relationship where nationals from India, somehow they don't see us as Indians. And that resulted in a conflict and gradual movement away of that kind of idea. But we have, I would say, dual, triple, quadruple identity. IDs. Oh, and things. We have always historically looked and we want to build this identity. And of course, the identity has been there as a result. Throughout the Caribbean, it's so popular that one cannot tell the difference. Now, Caribbean food or West Indian food or it's Indian food. Of course, our food is the palate is quite different in that the taste is not as spicy, masala driven as it is in the United States. Of course, our music is masala driven. We call it chutney. So that's it. You can ask another question.
We said that the soft power, how can it be used both the countries? I always believe that there is value, both hands of each. So, what are your views?
Right. So just for the viewers, interest or clarification, softball, whether it's so I think India should play a greater interest in promoting this soft and this culture that it would interest people more. I think would be music, and this music should be promoted not only in Guyana, where it is from, but it should be promoted more in places like Jamaica, Trinidad, Dominica. I would say also the same with regards to food. We should get these places become more familiar with the variety of Indian dishes. It's not just bubbles as barat. Uh, we should introduce samosa. Uh, my first taste of samosa, for example, was in the West. Samosa was never really introduced, and now samosa is extremely popular. Same thing in Canada. So I believe if we introduce more of these dishes in the other societies, it will have to promote greater identity. So that's one way. Another one must not forget uh, softball can also be through the kind of a system in their renders, especially in this 2-year pandemic, in which they provided so much resources to. Um, I remember visiting Antigua some years ago, and the Antiguan politicians speak of India. Then last year, or year before, these vaccines, I minister all these so that's another aspect of soft power. You can't just look at culture alone. There's also trade relations.
What about the economy? But we know that Indians went there how has that transformed centuries? And are they doing economic now?
So historically, Indians from a country that really didn't have much more base. But the other ethnic groups gravitated towards now Indians are and sudden stuff. Um, as a pollster, psychologist, I had done surveys even 4 or 5 years ago. Most of the country had no interest in it. They didn't know what this is about. And then a survey came out this year, 2 months ago it was done. The results were released yesterday, 2 days ago. The United States, IRI, International Republican Institute, and they came up with the same finding I did. Only 5% of the population familiar with this thing called oil and energy. Oil. And Guyana is producing 125,000 barrels last 14 months, and it is now improved to a quarter 200,000. Regrettably, the local population is not benefiting significantly. All of the expatriates are coming from other countries working in the oil. Local population. At this time, training is being provided now. So maybe in months, 6 months, a year, I think more and more of them will be used into the in terms of revenues, only for the last 14 months, only about $600 million, I think, Guyana received. Now, it probably is going to be another 200 million a month now, because the amount of oil that's been sold now. Interestingly, India did buy 1 million barrels of oil sometime about 6 months ago. And I believe that they is interested by barrels a year, a month. So that, I think that would make a significant difference if India is able to build this trade relationship by Guyana.
No, but they're very likely that so far the benefits have not percolated down the population level. How has the economic or the occupational profile of Indian diaspora changed over last 1 year?
So the Indian population historically has worked in cultivated. Over the last about 5 years ago, the government, decided to close 4 sugar mills. Some 7,500 sugar mills, most of them Indian. The remaining work now, I think, is very small, about 10. And sugar is no longer profitable. And I don't know how long it's going to be subsidized. The problem with agriculture and with oil is that one has to be careful that you don't fall into this trap that African countries fell into. Such disease, where you rely on oil, neglect everything else, and oil runs out, and it will run out. Then you have nothing to rely on. So then you have to do it. I don't know what the Guyana government plans to do. I mean that it is going to diversify the economy. What it is, I don't know. But we have a lot of fishery, but that one group. It is a challenge for Guyana's economy. And perhaps one may want to look at manufacturing industries that can engage in trade with the Asian countries. Because I know India buys a lot of wood. And
I'll ask one more question. How do you want to see that last year? But particularly the smaller countries have
Nepal as
suffered. How has Guyana tackled COVID in terms of and where do you see economy that then I will after
See, on paper, Guyana's economy grew. Again, I said that on paper. The GDP went up. But it is income isn't why it went up. Money. But the money didn't filter down to the people. That means, nevertheless, we're asking about
how did the go
right. So in COVID, look, during COVID, like the rest of the world, Guyana's economy was but oil was produced, so that helps. The Indian government was very, very generous. I think they gave vaccines. 100,000 vaccines. And Guyana at one time had one of the highest incidents. That's substantial. Today, COVID is not much of a challenge to Guyana as it is challenging. If government, like other countries, was able to provide some assistance, but not enough. And we were able to overcome many problems. One good thing about government of Guyana, a president, amounts of financial assistance given to retirees, pensioners, commercial workers, as well as the government. So we were able to manage that. So the government, I think the government did a good job in terms of providing financial assistance.
Thank you, Mr. Krishna. Now, I will request our Vice President, P. Satyabal, who has a very genuine concern for the Indian diaspora, especially in India diaspora. So, over to this.
I would like to know the exact condition of Indian education, because I know that higher educated people, they are migrating to Canada. So first of all, we have to identify where we can, part like you said, that what is the type of oil, because this is not but India has got some strength like in macro. We have to find the ways out where we can have joint Guyana for sustainable agro, where we can have not only agro, we can have a value-added industry, not only the local surrounding countries, even the US. I think the soil and the land is, and we can see that because we have some scholarships, students coming to India for higher education, they can build a good relation when they go back.
So, Guyana had only one, but still has one. For sure, that is what we and others migrated to the US. Tertiary. University of Guyana produced students, and over 85% migrate. Economy was most of them again. Brain drain from Guyana and brain gain for the USA. Recently, India has offered substantial numbers of stop. But historically, it has not offered stop and scholarships. Students come here to study. I think for the last 18 months, a couple thousand scholarships offered by India in various fields. And so you have students studying in India, but they don't have physically come here. As a result of this pandemic, we have virtual learning. And IGNU, among other universities, have been offering scholarship. I think students have finished 1 year, and in a few years now, there is also postgraduate virtual study. So India has been providing education for the Chinese. I would say the same for other islands, but not as much as Guyanese for whatever reason. But Guyana has been one of the largest aid recipients, I think, on a per capita basis I think India produces, gives India more financially than any other. India has also, in fact, an agreement was signed just a few days ago by a group that is in Guyana from India. They're going to build a road, a highway, and I think it's a substantial contract of about 100 million. Huge amount of money. Yes, yes. It is a line of credit. Yes. And then we have this D.Y. Patel group that is going to start a university. A building was constructed about 7 years ago, but following the change in regime, it's suspended. I think it is now going to be a medical university.
Sure, but
But I believe there is room for more. There is room for some kind of special hospital. If Indian investors can establish a hospital in Guyana, I think it would be well, because Guyana itself does not have these specialized skills. Arts or another kind of thing.
for I think the population is
And even though the population is small, you can have what is called medical tourism, or you can have these other people.
but if D.Y. Patel is coming, they'll be definitely coming up. Which is mandatory international. It is mandatory international. We can look forward to this build up because India has got a very good skill development, and we are going to be the skill capital.
I think what we need to do is if the Indian government somehow provide training or even an institute or a college that provides petroleum engineering studies. And I think there's a demand for that. I think it would benefit both of us. We're asking how we can have mutual benefit. I think we in Guyana can benefit from it, and then you have nationals from India who can provide the skills for the training, and they themselves can also go there and work because they will be a demand for labor. I think today there is going to be a session going on. There's going to be a session of someone from India who's in Guyana, some professor, that is first name, Yado, who is going to do an estimate of the need for technical labor in Guyana. And so we have, I believe right now, technical labor and quite important. Thousands of Indians from India. They benefit, and it will also benefit us.
So we can meet the High Commissioner. Can work as a now. Secondly, you told about the what is the main reason? Economic what idea did you have?
Conversion has been a challenge for the world. And one of the reasons was historically, as I found, still substantial, I think, and so even though oil is there and income are growing, only for a small percentage of the population. So the rest of the population are underprivileged neighborhoods, and these are the neighborhoods that are targeted by these juries of the United States. And large amounts of money are being used to lure them through hampers, But that's one of the major I food. Yes, they give food to other ethnic as well, but those other ethnic are already controlled. So through economic privileges, Muslims are not converted, but other Indians are being converted. Muslims don't face. Islam doesn't face that.
Their economic-
Hindu,
their economic condition is
the Muslim community, I never really thought about it, but I would say they're probably better off than financials.
what about language?
Well, one good thing about Indians in Guyana is that more and more of them have an interest in India. Unfortunately, there are limited opportunities for learning. See, I have been trying to learn Hindi for so long that even though I studied the book, I'm not in practice. So unless you speak it, unless you practice it, you really can't. What I have been told is that more and more Indians are attending the conversational classes, and I think that is easier, and I think they learn much better. If the Indian High Commission in Guyana and Trinidad can provide conversational English, and instead of it being done in a central location in the city, it should spread out to the villages. See, historically, Indians settled away from urban areas or rural areas because they're an agricultural centered people. And therefore, when you are providing lessons, whether it is music, dance, Hindi, in the city, they're not going to come. They have to go to the community. I had this discussion both in Trinidad and Guyana, and the High Commission said, we can provide it. One of the challenges we have is sending our people out to these areas, as far as transportation as well as economy. I believe that is being done now, but if there can be incentives, if there can be instructions from here, Delhi, say, go ahead and do these kind of things. Why have all the activities in Georgetown? Why are you celebrating Independence Day in Georgetown when there are hardly any Indians in Georgetown? Who's benefiting? Why? And same thing, why are you celebrating in the Port of Spain when you could be having it in the Indian communities? Or if you're going to have one in Georgetown and Port of Spain, but have it in the outlying areas as well. So that people now will become more proud. Oh, Independence Day. We are celebrating it in Maurice, where I'm from, or where my wife is from, Barataria, or Juanes, or in now they far away from the city. And so people will be gravitating more towards soft culture, having events in their communities, rather than having to come to Georgetown where they fear that they're going to get wrong.
Correct experience.
So we have privilege to request Dr. Sasiwala, our joint secretary,
What about the folk song? Yeah, folk song.
Right. So it's interesting folk music. You know, historically, we have had a lot of very strong folk singing. Bihari, Yupiwala, it died off a period of time, I would say in the 90s. And suddenly there seemed to be a reemergence of folk music in the last several years. Trinidad in particular. And the Trinidadians are now going to Guyana to bring back folk music. fact, they've also gone to Fiji to reintroduce folk. Suriname still has its folk music. So folk music. I myself don't. You listen to it, and when you listen to Bhojpuri singing, so that's another area which we can have groups go to Guyana, Trinidad, and other places.
Sam, when I was in Guyana, and I had surveyed about this conversion, I came to know that Presbyterian Church started it when our Indian Endangered River reached there, and they had composed Hindi songs, Hindi bhajan. They will go in Sabwa and other festival to them and distribute sweets, blankets, and all that. They will go to hospital where Hindus are being treated. Hindus population not taking care, they will give medicine to them and also provide all kind of
And pray, and they would pray for them as well.
pray for them for. So these are the reason they got converted because of financial reason. As regards Hindi, I was a visiting professor in the University of Guyana. One cat was vice chancellor and the secretary general of Commonwealth. Ramphal was the chancellor of the university, and Hindi was being taught there. But the students would come forward there only from mandirs and pujaris came. The regular students were not there. So the problem is that we should go to villages and we also have students. At a point of time, there was a Hindi teacher, Dr. Tiwari was there in the culture center, and I was in the university, Dr. Chha was in the university, and there was a scholarship called Ratnavati, a scholarship. Ratnavati was the mother of our former foreign secretary, Dixit, and she was treated like goddess there, Mataji, Mataji, and many students like Ripu Daman, Gokaran, Selma, were the student of Ratnavati Dixit. So now we will have to do from Guyana also that they should come to join in the classes. If they do not come, we can't do anything.
But they're not going to come forward.
No,
I'm
yes,
just-
that's the problem. That's the problem. Because Guyana is a big country, to say that from a skeleton, from a secure, it is very difficult to come. But what I propose that we have the quarterly session of there. That for 3 months we have in Georgetown, 3 months in the Balbish or a skeleton, and 3 months, because it is always difficult. But I have also spoken about e-teaching and e-learning. And if such things through bhajans, Hindi songs, we may that propagate speaking Hindi there, and they are actually very keen to that pursue Hindi books. Apart from that, I saw a news that Guyana will be world second highest real GDP growth in 22, and 20%, 20.4%. This is the estimate of IMF. So because of this petroleum product, I think that Guyana is going to be more prestigious than Trinidad, because Trinidad was at the helm of affairs and a small New York because of the petroleum.
Trinidadians are migrating to that.
I'm now Trinidadian. There was those days I remember that when I used to go there to have potato purchased after I was at Patnam Bank. Now you all are in a better condition.
I'm glad you experienced the period of banned goods in Guyana. When I told people that people like Ata, flour was banned, potato was banned, china was banned, couldn't see those items. You could have, because you could go to Trinidad, buy it and come back. We couldn't go and buy it and come back. We're not allowed it.
And then government, labor government of our now, what that open a diplomatic store. So I can go and purchase potato when my fellow Chinese were unable. As a matter of fact, the Pujari was bringing potato from Suriname and he was arrested.
Was arrested.
So those were the difficult days. Now we are in a better position. India is ready to go forward, and we should work together for the progress of Guyana in a very cordial and cooperative. So we wonder what more India can do for them.
Okay, so there are a number of things. You mentioned one. One is, let's have sessions on Hindi music, and other cultural aspects, like away from city. Let's have it in the communities where the Indians. You mentioned as it should be Nal and David. Honest. The good news out of Trinidad is that you now have an Indian cultural center in the Indian, which is good. And they're having a lot of activities. In fact, I wrote about quite a few of them. There was a group that was there, I think, 2 weeks ago. I wrote about it. So if you can have those kind of activities, that's one. Secondly, if you could send these troops to perform, I think it would generate interest. And so not only are you going to be training them in musical sessions and dancing, but you also are actually going to concerts. And thirdly, if you could bring various kind of products from India, and that has a lot of experience. You don't need those experts in as much as needed now in Guyana. So Guyana has not had much have Indian experts. And not only in Guyana, but I think we should have it and the other, not just Indians, but the rest of the population be familiar with Indian, not just cultural products, but other products as well. Medicine. So, I believe those are some essential things. India is providing a lot of stuff. What we need to do is
Well, so now we have had discussion on various aspects. One thing you mentioned that this is about the political challenge. Have all seen what happened. And you mentioned that rights. Now, given the electoral system in Guyana, which the parties get the number of seats, percentage of votes that they get, and given the fact that polarized, and also factoring in that the population of Diaspora is what do you see as the future political because the kind of wealth which we are seeing, the GDP projections, that economic can only bring folks there is political stability. So you have been a psychologist also. So I would like your final views on where do you see the political roadmap there?
So historically, since the independence, we have had rigged fraudulent elections for the state, which probably over 1966 to 1990 elections and a form of fraudulent. Free and fair elections were held that the party put up on all the the first democratic election was in 1992, and the government that won governed incredibly died in it. That was such and then thereafter, 1990 governance. Then we had the free and fair elections. Now, that the government collapsed. No confidence. So the government resigned rather than face it. Elections are held. So we had a government governed from 20. An attempt was made to rig the election. Biggest problem facing that was having free and fair election, not under quote unquote Indian political party, but the opposing political party, People's National Congress, which is Afro affiliated. The Indian population has been declining, and the the People's Progressive Party won a bare majority, 33 seats. What will happen in the next election in 5? It's going to be a very close outcome. What is the good news for the People's Progressive Party is that the opposition People's National Congress Party is disorganized. It's divided, and so I believe the People's Progressive Party will probably retain power unless they make mistakes like they did between 2011 and 2020, which they related themselves with political movements that were not favorable. What happened again in the states? I know question is very that I think challenge the big relationship with that's the key one and I would say Indian population probably remain stable as a result of oil and petroleum discovery. I don't think there will be that much and also if one look at the political skills of the very very shrewd, kind of policies.
इससे पहले भी मैं राकेश पांडे जी को धन्यवाद ज्ञापन के लिए कहूँ क्योंकि हिंदी की बात की तो I will just want to add something. We had opportunity to discuss with Jagdev Donald Ramadan came over here, and yes, you are the chief guest of our Bharatiya Gaurav Samman. Yes, Gaurav Samman. So and we also called upon him and had an audience in that Bharatiya Pravasi Bharatiya Divas where he was honored and got the Pravasi Bharatiya Samman. Guest one. So Mr. Dr. Vishnu Visram, we had very academic discussion and also very practical discussion. The question is that this is golden jubilee year for the establishment of Indian Culture Center in Guyana, and I widely recollect that this our High Commissioner Dr. Gopal Singh was a scholar and this Secretary General of this Commonwealth. At that time, he was the Foreign Minister. They signed and we opened that culture center. So we should try to celebrate it on mass level. Cultural programs should be there, also the songs and all that. जहाँ तक हिंदी का सवाल है, विष्णु जी, मैं जब ऐसे क्यों हो गया तो एक आदमी मिले, उनका नाम था द्वारका सिंह. वो भारत से वहां गए. भारत से वो बच्चे थे नहीं गया था. मैं द्वारका सिंह के यहाँ. तो वो हिंदी स्कूल चलाते थे और कहते थे क्या कि हर एक घर में भी जस्ट अर्धन पॉट ही के मैंने हरिया बर्तन और सब चावल निकाल के उसमें रखता था और उस पैसे से वो हिंदी स्कूल चलाते. दैट वाज द डेडिकेशन ऑफ बाबू द्वारका सिंह. and I wrote an article on that which was published in Times of India and Muthia Muthia Jamada. So that was the dedication, devotion for learning Hindi and Indian culture. तो इतना बड़ा वहां पर हिंदी का प्रेम रहा है और जब when you go to Skeldon and cross a river for Suriname, both sides we had the massive population speaking and understanding Hindi. We had a Hindi higher secondary school. So what I want the government of Guyana should also, they are teaching French, Spanish and English to their students. This should be. I don't think that French is much relevant for a student. Spanish maybe, Portuguese maybe. So if this government tries to introduce Hindi there, we will be helpful to providing teachers and all that, and that will be a very sustainable and continuing process.
Yeah. I know time is going, but myself and a group of us months ago tried to get the as a subject in the regional CXC Caribbean examination system. I think the good news is that I'm told yesterday that it has been accepted, and it will now be a subject in fact it has been a subject, but it's going to be formalized properly. I am also pleased to learn that there is now going to be a curriculum, and that there is also going to be a textbook for students to learn from which they will take. And so assistance will be provided in that endeavors. And that can be done virtually, it doesn't have to be done.
Then again, I should add that I and Professor Ramji Tiwari, who was the Hindi professor here, visited each and every temple of Guyana, even crossed the rivers from both genders, and provided Ramcharitmanas, Gita and other books. And villagers, in red cloth they kept, and they worshipped us also with Ramcharitmanas. तो उन्होंने हमारी पूजा की और कहा कि बहुत साल पहले हमारे बाप कला रामायण लाए थे और आप लाए। तो बहुत कहानी लंबी है, मैं राकेश पांडे जी से कहूंगा कि वो हिंदी में करने वाली आप।
And one of the good news is that we are able, a group of us, were able to request and we got approval that Hinduism is now going to be part of the curriculum and a subject in the regional CX.
क्योंकि इससे पहले जो एग्जाम था लंदन वाला, इससे पहले यहाँ लंदन का ए और ओ होता था, उसमें 4 इंडियन लैंग्वेज रिकॉग्नाइज था।
The only problem we have right now is having a textbook on Hinduism from which the students study. We have asked the few people to prepare that simple so that the students can.
राकेश जी, ये हम लोगों के लिए बहुत सौभाग्य की बात है कि आदरणीय विष्णु विश्राम जी हम लोगों के मध्य हैं। उन्होंने हिंदी के लिए जो प्रयास किया वहां पर पाठ्यक्रम में, ये लगता है कि हम सब लोगों के लिए यह एक बहुत ही अत्यंत प्रसन्नता की बात है। और मैं जानता हूँ विश्राम जी हिंदी समझते हैं, तो इसके बारे में जब बात, ये तो आप लोग चूंकि अंग्रेजी दिखाने के लिए कि भाई विश्राम जी जो बोल देते हैं थोड़ी बहुत अंग्रेजी, बाकी हिंदी वो जानते हैं अधिक से।
So listen, I will make every effort to improve my Hindi. I'll make every effort.
तो एक आज की बहुत हमारी उपलब्धि है, विश्राम जी ने न केवल आर्थिक, सांस्कृतिक, भाषाई अनेक विषयों पर गयाना के पक्ष में जो हम लोग नहीं जानते थे, जो हमसे कुछ विषय छूटे थे, जैसे हिंदी की बात हुई तो हिंदी के बारे में सरकार से लोगों में बहुत सारी भ्रांतियां थी, उन्होंने स्पष्ट किया। तो इस बहुत ही उपयोगी परिचर्चा में विश्राम जी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर आपका आने के लिए। आगे श्याम पांडे जी जिनके कारण हम सब यहाँ पे इकट्ठे हो जाते हैं, जिनका एक स्नेह आमंत्रण होता है, नीचे पद मिलता होता है श्याम पांडे, और हम लोग तत्काल चल देते हैं वहां से। और नारायण कुमार जी जो तो नारायण चाचा हैं, जिनको इनके बिना नहीं पाता। हाँ, विष्णु जी के बगल नारायण है और वो बगल में गोपाल है। तो ये पूरा जो है आज देव लोग वहां बैठा हुआ है, तो उसके किस तरफ हम लोग हैं, माननीय मुकेश जी और जो हमारे यहाँ उपाध्यक्ष हैं बहुत ही सक्रिय हैं, और सबके ऊपर चंद्रमा यानी मैं राकेश हैं, मैं भी साथ में देवलोक में हूँ। तो मित्रों, हमारे जितने भी यहाँ पर सब लोग हैं, यारएसपी के पूरे परिवार को इस सुंदर परिचर्चा के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। और आशा है कि आप सब लोग यूं ही आयोजन से हम लोग जुड़े रहेंगे, होते रहेंगे। सबका बहुत बहुत आभार। अजय विष्णु जी, पुनः आपका धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू वेरी मच। और हमारे रिसर्च स्कॉलर रुचि और चेतन को, टेक्नीशियन चेतन को बहुत बहुत अच्छा रहा। और ये डायलॉग के बदले चौपाल
की बैठका हो गया।
धन्यवाद। तो श्याम जी, अब समाप्त किया जाएगा। बंद करो।